Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be looking at utility maximization. We're going to be looking at how can we maximize our happiness while balancing the fact that we have to make choices, that there are opportunity costs that abound in our society. We don't have everything that we want. We have to deal with scarcity. So the question is, when I'm dealing with scarcity, how do I make sure that I'm the happiest I can possibly be? So our goal is to understand a little bit more about this concept of diminishing marginal utility and be able to use marginal analysis to identify an optimal consumption bundle, an optimal amount of goods that I should purchase that will make me the happiest within my budget constraints. So we start with this idea of what is happiness, and economists will measure people's happiness in what are known as utils. We're talking about utility. Happiness measures utility, and we've made up this measure. It's not a real number, but we craft this concept to try and explain the point, and we'll call them utils. And so when you really get in econ, you start talking about, oh, this gave me 25 utils, or this brought me 100 utils, and you can make people feel good about themselves. I suppose if you're sitting there at dinner one night and you finish and you look at your mom and dad and say, "Mom and Dad, that was like 1,000 util dinner," and they'll look at you like you're crazy. But you're expressing to them the appreciation for how delicious it was. So we're just making up these numbers, but they are helpful in sort of understanding the process that we sort of instinctively go through to maximize our happiness. We're saying here that everything we buy has utility and that everything we buy makes up what's known as our consumption bundle. We want to make sure that when we spend our limited resources, that the things we buy bring us the most happiness. And so let's walk through this. First off, we'll notice that total utility generally increases, but it increases at a decreasing rate because of this diminishing marginal utility. We get less and less happiness as we consume more and more goods. So for example, it's a hot summer day. We have no utility right now. We don't have any Slurpees, but we walk across the 7-Eleven, we see the Slurpee machine, it's working. We're very excited. We fill up the cup. We take our first sip of Slurpee and oh, it is so good. Maybe it brings us 40 utils of happiness. All right, that would be going from 0 to 40. So that would be our marginal utility would be 40 utils. And then maybe one's not enough. It's super hot. So we go back in and we have a second one. Now I just had my first. So I'm happy with this Slurpee. It's delicious. I enjoy it, but I don't enjoy it as much as the first one because I'm not quite as hot and as uncomfortable as I was before because I've enjoyed the iced drink already. So my total utility may be 70 after consuming two Slurpees. That second Slurpee added 30 utils to my happiness. So this idea of marginal utility is the change in total utility over the change in consumption. And so we could go through this whole chart. We'd say the third Slurpee added 20 utils because we go from 70 to 90. The fourth one added 10. I already had 90. Now I go to 4. I have 100. So the fourth one added 10. The fifth one added 5. And then at the sixth one, the brain freeze is way too much. It brings not joy, but misery. And I actually lose utility in this case. So we're seeing here that we have positive utility, but it's diminishing over time. So where did diminishing marginal utility show up? It showed up when the marginal utility is less than the marginal utility before. It's not that it has to be negative. So we had increasing marginal utility on the first Slurpee because I went from 0 to 40, but then it begins to diminish after the first Slurpee because each subsequent Slurpee, while it's adding to my total, it's not adding as much to my total as the one before it. Now, we live in a world of constraints. We live in a world of scarcity. In this case, it's how much money we have. We can't buy everything we want because I only have so much money. So we have to develop what's known as a budget line. That will tell us the maximum amount of goods that we could buy based on the combination of goods that we're facing. And that creates what's known as the consumption possibilities curve. So in this case, maybe we're assuming an income of $50 and we want to buy notebooks and CDs. Notebooks are $5 a piece, CDs might be 10. I know CDs are sort of antiquated, but let's just pretend. Then what that tells me is with an income of $50, I could buy as many as 10 notebooks and no CDs, or 5 CDs and no notebooks, or something in between. So point B is possible. I could buy 6 notebooks and 2 CDs. That's using all of my money. I could buy 2 notebooks and 1 CD at point A, but that would be real smart because that would leave me with money left over that I could be using to make myself happier by buying one or more of each of those two goods. Whereas point C is simply not possible. I cannot buy 6 notebooks and 5 CDs. I don't have enough money. If I want to buy that combination, I better get another job. So the way we maximize our utility is by being strategic about what we buy first, so that when we purchase a good, we are getting the most effect for the money we're spending. And so we're going to use marginal analysis to do that by looking at the marginal utility per dollar spent. And I will be maximizing my happiness when the marginal utility per dollar spent of one good is equal to the marginal utility per dollar spent on the other. If one of them is greater, if I get more marginal utility per dollar for notebooks and CDs, then it would make sense for me to buy more notebooks because they're bringing me more happiness for every dollar I spend. I'm getting more value, more bang for my buck, as it were. So let's look at an example. Let's pretend that Edith spends all of her income on goods X and Y. She only has 2 goods. She spends all her money on it. At her current consumption bundle, the marginal utility of good X is 10, and the marginal utility of good Y is 12. Okay. If the price of good X is 5 and the price of good Y is 3, then what should Edith do? If we're looking at totals here, we might say, well, she should buy more of good Y because it brings her more happiness. And maybe, but it could be that it's more expensive too. We don't know. Well, we do know because we have these numbers, but in general, just looking at marginal utility, it doesn't necessarily tell us the right answer. So we could plug these numbers into the formula, and we would see that she should be producing or consuming more of good Y and less of good X because she's only getting 2 utils per dollar on good X. She's getting 4 utils per dollar on good Y. And so it's a better value for her. So if she wants to make herself the happiest she can possibly be, she should buy more Y and less X. When she does buy more Y, then that will, because of diminishing marginal utility, that next unit won't be 12 over 3. That next unit might be only 10 over 3. So her marginal utility per dollar will begin to shrink as she buys more Y. And because she's buying less X due to diminishing marginal utility, that marginal utility number will rise. And so that marginal utility per dollar spent on good X will begin to equalize with the ratio for good Y until they're equal to each other. And that's when we know she's making the best possible decision. You might get a question like this, where you've got 2 goods and you're presented with total utility. You're going to have to calculate marginal utility per dollar spent. If you've been given a budget of $20, we have to figure out what we're going to buy. So here's the process. I would take my marginal utility. In this case, the first snack adds 15, and so that's 15 marginal utils divided by $4 per snack. Tells me I get 3.75 utils per dollar on that first snack. That second snack is adding 10 utils, cost me $4. So I'm getting 2.5 utils per dollar. The third one added 6 utils for $4, so I'm adding 1.5 utils per dollar, and we can keep going down the line. With drinks, it's the same thing. First drink brings me 12 utils of happiness, so it'll be 12 divided by 2 is 6 utils per dollar. The second one, we're adding 9 utils divided by 2. So for every dollar I spend on drinks, I'm getting 4.5 utils per dollar. And I can continue down the line. Once I have these numbers, I can decide what I'm going to do to determine what's the optimal bundle. I look and I say, which of these 2 products has the greatest marginal utility per dollar spent? In this case, it's drinks. 6 is better than 3.75. So I will buy a drink first. Then I ask myself, should I buy a second drink or should I buy my first snack? The second drink gives me 4.5 utils per dollar. The first snack only gives me 3.75. 4.5 is better than 3.75. I will buy a second drink. And if we stop here for a second, we'll notice that I can spend $4 on drinks and have 21 utils of happiness. Or I could spend $4 on snacks and only have 15. So this is why we're doing this marginal utility per dollar, to see which of these 2 products gives us the most value. Because when we look at total utility, the snack seems like the better deal at 15 utils per dollar, or 15 total utils. But it costs so much that I can actually get more utility and be happier with items that are sort of less valuable to me on their own. Um, but because they're so much less expensive, I'll have more utils with the same amount of money. So now the question is, do I do a third drink or a first snack? Again, 4 is better than 3.75. I will do a third drink. A fourth drink or a first snack? Well, now the snack is the better value at 3.75, so I'll buy a snack. Second snack or fifth drink. 3 is better than 2.5, so I'll buy a fifth drink. Then it's a sixth drink or a second snack. Now here they're the same. 2.5 is the same. I am indifferent. I don't care between the two. So I will purchase both a second snack and a second drink. And because they're the same number, I'm going to stop here and see, did I maximize my budget? And the answer here is yes, because if I bought 2 snacks, that's $8 in snacks. 6 drinks is $12 in drinks. So if I add the amount of money I spent on snacks and drinks, it equals my total budget. There is no combination of snacks and drinks that I can afford that will bring me more utility than that combination of 2 snacks and 4 drinks or 6 drinks. That's your best possible outcome. So we can practice, and I'll give you a chance. You can practice this. You can press pause in a second. Looking at our budget of $36, do we want to see a movie in the theater at $6, or do I want to rent that movie from Amazon for $3 a movie? And based on these total utility numbers, you should be able to calculate marginal utility and marginal utility per dollar and be able to work out the optimal quantity. So go ahead and give that a shot, press pause, and when you're done, press play, and we'll see if you got it right. All right, if you gave this a shot, you hopefully came up with 4 movies in the theater and 4 movies from Amazon, because it is at that point where the marginal utility per dollar spent are the same and we spent all our money. There were other times in which they were the same, 3 movies at Amazon and 2 in the theater, but we did not spend all our money. You want to make sure you spend all of your money here to maximize your utility. So hopefully that process makes sense. If you got questions, ask in class. Otherwise, I will talk to you next time.